All right, so let's first take a look at music montage, right? Where we're basically using the cues to an audio soundtrack to really cut and get into different kind of rhythms and really make certain kind of shots stand out as impactful and really have a marriage between the vibe and the emotion of the visuals that we have and the vibe and the emotion of the song that we're using. So for this video, it's actually a very close and important project to me that we recently put together. I produced it. We had, I think, 6 different characters, or really soldiers from different eras: samurai, Native American, redcoat, a modern day businesswoman, kind of CEO type, and a US Marine, a few more, but you get the point, you get the gist of it, that we basically took all of these warriors from different eras, thousands of years apart, and compressed that in time and put them in the same exact room in a 3-minute video. So that alone has a certain kind of emotion, right? A certain kind of vibe to it. So the soundtrack that we chose has that same kind of, I don't know, heartful, kind of slow and emotional vibe as well. So now what we need to do in the music montage sequence is to really pair the audio and visual together, using the cues, using the striking points, using the different moments in the song. So let's just take a quick look at what this currently looks like, and then I'll break down what I did and why I did it. So, as you can see, there's a very, very emotional build in the actual visuals that we shot. The younger couple changes history by replacing their weapons with everyday items that doesn't create violence. So you really can use montage to take all these different elements, squish it together in a specific and thoughtful way that creates that emotion where I'm sure you felt what the warriors were feeling. I'm sure you felt the realness of who they are. So if we had, for example, this visual, same exact visual track, but without the audio, it has a totally different feeling. We can tell what's going on. We can tell that it's still the same basic, events that are unfolding, but there's no connection that we have because that audio, that song, that soundtrack is just in the background telling us what to actually feel. So when we see these visuals with no actual mood or motivation of to feel happy, to feel sad, there's no effect that it has on the viewer. So the audio that's playing in the background is incredibly crucial for film, but it's everything in the montage where the sounds make the visuals and the visuals make the sounds. So let's get back to using the audio track and see what kind of cues they were actually cutting on to create this impactful edit. And so as you can see with the waveforms of the soundtrack, there are various valleys, peaks, peaks and plateaus. So really what you're actually doing is taking this waveform of an actual song and turning that into an image. This is what film is. This is really what a montage is. Seeing this waveform, analyzing it, and listening to it as the editor, taking these various peaks and valleys and different rhythms and beat of the song and creating that visual storytelling. So let's go to the very beginning of this track. It has actually a really cool kind of clock ticking in the background that had a really cool introductory feel that was perfect for this montage. Now I choose to cut on every fourth beat for this intro. So as you can see, this is the same length as this, which is the same length of this, and then this fourth clip is actually longer, which bridges into this different kind of transition where you can tell that the pacing changes, where it's beat, 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 beat. But once we have this pause here and then we bridge this gap, you can see that the actual pacing or the beat is going to be different at that portion. So seeing that as the editor, we should know that these 4 visuals should have something definitely in common. And then once we bridge this gap to this new different kind of pacing, there should be a shift in the overall feeling or emotion of what we're seeing visually. So let's see what that looks like. So as you can see, this first set of sounds had a specific emotion to it that tied along to the audio that we were hearing. And then as soon as we went through this little pause into this much more kind of airy feeling, we then cut to this cool, misty, fog, intensified scene at the very beginning of our shoot. So that's a perfect example of also changing the rhythm as well. Here we can see through looking at the waveform that the beat is really the driving force behind this part of the song. So I chose to show 4 shots in this 5 to 8 second window. Now when we get to this part, there's a totally different feeling. I chose to show half the amount of shots because it was a much more slower pacing for that specific part in the soundtrack. So we go into the break and slow things down. And now we go into a different set of shots where we kind of pick the pace back up. So you can see when we went into this slower pacing where we chose to only use 2 shots, there was a slower feeling with the soundtrack. And then after that break, things started to pick back up into the song, and that's where we actually increased the pacing following the overall ebb and flow of the soundtrack.